Welcome to Attack Range 2.0 demo. We'll be starting off by pulling the Docker image for Attack Range. This should take about 2 to 3 minutes, and this is going to have a full pre-installed Attack Range as part of a Docker container. You won't need the Docker runtime running on your machine and installed before you get this to work. After a Docker image is fully downloaded, the next step is to run it. Once we have we're inside the Docker image, you'll see that you get dropped right into an Attack Range folder with all the necessary pieces pre-installed and configured for you. Next step here is configure our cloud provider that we're going to deploy an Attack Range into. So in our case, would be AWS. Run AWS configure. Once AWS is configured, the next step is to actually configure the Splunk Attack Range. As simple as running Python Attack Range configure. Here you'll be asked a set of questions to pre-configure what you want out of your environment. We're running AWS. It'll pre-generate a password for us. It will ask us if we wanted a new key pair to be generated to SSH into this environment. We do. We'll use this public key. This is the region we want to deploy into. It whitelists which IP will be allowed to SSH into this environment. If you want to have multiple attack ranges with different names, we can set it here. And then I'll ask you a series of questions. What do you want to build into this environment? In our case, we'll build the domain controller, no Linux clients, no Linux servers, no ad hoc testing with Kali. Simply just a domain controller for our case. We can just hit enter through this entire set of prompts. Once that's done, you have a pre-built Splunk Attack Range configuration file with all the parameters you would want or need. Again, in here, you can tweak anything you need. If you're curious what other settings are available, you can look into the template file. These are all pre-explained here neatly. But we're ready to go. So we'll just simply run Attack Range build in here, and this will kick off building an Attack Range. This takes about 8 to 15 minutes, depending on the amount of machines you configure to be spun up. Once completed, you get a nice output telling you what machines got built. Specifically, in our case, we have a Windows domain controller and a Splunk server, their IP addresses, and ways to log into them. In Splunk's case, we can log in via the web UI or SSH right into the machine and control it like a regular machine. Here's the username and password. As well as in the Windows domain controller, same story. We can RTP right into the machine since it's a real full-blown domain controller pre-configured with everything we needed. Now, let's quickly launch an attack using Simulate. To simulate an attack, we have a few options in the attack range. We run simulate and pass the help flag. We can see there are multiple simulation engines actually we can select from. The one by default is Atomic Red Team. If you're not familiar with the project, I highly recommend you to search for it. They're pre-built attacks. Or alternatively, there's also Purple Sharp. Purple Sharp was built by our very own Mauricio, and it allows you to run full-blown adversary simulations or multiple attack stages into the range. It's pretty amazing. Today, we're going to use the default out-of-the-box Atomic Red Team for this example. And really, the two required arguments for simulation are a target, which is in our case, we're going to simulate an attack against the Windows domain controller, and the simulation technique. And this equates to the MITRE technique ID specifically for the atomic in Atomic Red Team. It equates to the atomic in Atomic Red Team. In our case, for example, we'll use credential dumping, which is a very common technique for dumping credentials in a Windows domain controller. To run a simulation, we simply run Python Attack Range, PY, pass it again, target. In our case, is the Windows domain controller. This would be the name of the machine and the simulation technique. And we're going to pass it credential dumping, which is T1003.002. Oh, I forgot. One important thing right here is just the actual simulate action. There we go. This will run all the attacks in the Atomic Red Team on this technique against this domain controller. After it's done, we're going to log into a Splunk server and see the results. Once it's done, we'll see that, again, it's successfully executed multiple attacks, in this case, actually 7 attacks against a domain controller. One is registry dump of sans and creds, another one is registry with PyPyCats, registry parse with PyPyCats, another one using ESET utils, power dump, etc., etc., etc. Again, all these attacks are pre-built and documented by the Atomic Red Team project. Now with all that, let's see if we can actually log into a Splunk server and find or detect these attacks that got ran against this domain controller. So next step here is we're going to run show again. And now we're going to hop onto our browser and log into Splunk. Using the credentials and web address provided by the attack range output, we'll go ahead and log into our Splunk server. Here we are logged into Splunk, and you can see it already has a landing page tracking the different simulations ran against this environment, as well as all the necessary apps pre-installed and configured that we would use for detection development. One of the most important ones for us is Enterprise Security Content Update, ESCU, which is where different detections are developed, and you can see here about 904 detections included as part of this package that any customer can run. In our case, again, just to show the example of this attack we just launched, I'm going to go right into the search window, and I'm going to paste a known detection we have for finding attempted credential dump against reg.exe, which is one of the attacks you just saw launched. And if I run this, and this detection is actually, let me quickly cover it. It looks at the endpoint data model, since attack range already comes pre-built with our data models and data normalized into it. This will work out of the box, and it's looking for reg.exe or command.exe being ran with the word save across multiple or different registry keys that could contain credentials in them. So this is a way to dump credentials off of registries. If I run it across the 24 hours, we should see, oh, there it is. We see results, which are basically the processes that attempted to dump credentials from Atomic Red Team in our Windows Domain Controller box, Windows TC box.
Hi, I'm Mauricio, and in this short video, I want to show you the integration between attack range and Purple Shark. This integration is going to allow attack range users to easily launch automated multi-step attack simulation playbooks using the attack range command line tool. So it makes it really easy. Let's go ahead and check it out. First, I'm going to show you that I have an attack range up and running with a few hosts online and ready to be used. So now let's move on to the actual simulation playbook. So this is a JSON playbook, a simulation playbook that is going to be executed by Purple Shark to execute a series of techniques trying to mimic what I would call a low sophisticated threat actor going against an Active Directory network. So through the techniques, first we're going to do some discovery, like executing who am I, and using PowerShell to enumerate local accounts, specific domain accounts, specific domain groups within the network as well. Then we're going to be using a Kerberos password spraying attack. We're going to be doing Kerberoasting. And then we're going to move on to lateral movement, where we're going to use SEH task to try to start a task on a remote host, particularly the domain controller. Then we're going to try to create and start a remote service on the domain controller and using sc.exe, and finally move laterally using wmic as well. So let's go to the attack range, and from here we have the playbook, and all I'm going to have to execute is this. From the attack range command line tool, we're going to execute this simulation playbook using Purple Shark and against this host. So Ansible is going to take it from here and it's going to execute those 10 techniques. So I'm gonna pause this video until this finishes, so we don't have to wait. So after a few minutes, the simulation execution completes, and we get some results from PurpleSharp, but we're not gonna focus on this. We're just gonna straight to our login platform, and I'm just gonna refresh this dashboard that I created to hunt for and look for some of those indicators for the techniques that we just executed. So as you can see, we see who am I being executed. We see get local user in PowerShell. We see the attacker enumerating users using PowerShell and get AD user. Also get AD group, specifically looking for the groups that we define on the playbook. And then we see the lateral movement, SC being used to try to create a legit updater service on the domain controller. Same goes for SCH task, creating a remote scheduled task, legit scheduled task. And finally, WMIG executing calc on a remote host. So, quick video to show you the integration that allows attack range users to easily execute complex multi-step attack simulation playbooks from the attack range command line. Thanks, everyone. Bye.